Just hit the record button. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another chapter happy hour. My name is Will Clayton. I will be your host and moderator as always, and joining me this evening is Jordan Martincich, the Director of Development for PF and QF. Thanks for joining me, Jordan.
Happy to be here. Good evening, everybody.
Got a lot of chapter volunteers joining the room, which is good to see. A bit of housekeeping for those that maybe haven't joined a chapter happy hour, or it's been a month since we've had another one. The Q&A function, which you'll see on the bottom of your screen, is the best way to ask questions. So feel free, as Jordan's speaking or as we're just having a quick conversation, to dump your questions there. We'll do our best to get to all of them, or as many as we can. We'll either answer them live or answer them through text as well. So the chat function does work, but questions pop up a lot easier for Jordan and I to see through that. But before we dive into tonight's topic, Jordan, let's get a little background on you. Can you share your Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever story with our listeners, and then shed a little bit of light on what it means to be the Director of Development?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I know that a lot of the people on the meeting here tonight probably live in a state where the Uplands season is already officially open. But I'm in the greater Kansas City area, make my home in Overland Park, Kansas, and it doesn't open until this coming Saturday. So I'm full of anticipation. And between this call and meeting here tonight and the Upland opener the end of this week, I'm going to have a big week related to Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever and the things we care dearly about. I live in Overland Park with my wife and my 9-year-old son, Graham. Graham's actually going to go with me on the opener this weekend. We're going to get our 2 English setters out and hopefully find some quail in Northeast Kansas, in an area where I grew up hunting. My story is that was born and raised in the Kansas City area. My dad wasn't a hunter, was introduced to it as an adolescent by a distant cousin of mine, and just fell in love with it. So grew up in a major metropolitan area and was exposed to the outdoors and the sport that we all care about when I was about 12. That led to just continuing to do it every time I'd get the opportunity, forming lots of long-standing friendships and making lots of memories through the years, and then progressed in my career and decided when I was in my 20s that as much as I loved selling real estate, I didn't know that I had an undying passion to do that for the rest of my life, and made a decision to get into the conservation community. And Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever were the first place I looked, because at the time I had recently started as a chapter volunteer for our local chapter here in Johnson County, Kansas. Had a chance to meet a regional rep at the time, and one thing led to another, and landed a job in 2008 as regional representative, working with our chapters across the great state of Kansas. I had an opportunity to also work with some chapters in Oklahoma and down in Texas. And then in 2012, went into the development function full-time on the heels of the organization's first capital fundraising campaign, the Grassroots Conservation Campaign, and became the organization's first development officer, and then was promoted to Director of Development in early 2017. And now as Director of Development, I work with corporations, donors, volunteers, all of the stakeholders interested in our wildlife conservation mission to deliver our Call the Uplands campaign by securing resources from individuals that care deeply about the cause and making the organization part of their philanthropy. I'm blessed to work with a great team of folks that are employees of the organization, as well as our volunteers around the country, to help raise money for the cause and turn those financial resources into outcomes for our mission. So that's a little bit about me and what I do for the organization.
Love it. And let's see here, Quail in Northeast Kansas. So we'll just need to talk about that later on after the call. I'll need a couple of Onyx points from you, and I'm sure all the folks on the call here today would love them as well. Well, you touched on a bunch of things. Your story sort of leads right into the conversation that I intend to have tonight. I mean, and what I really pulled out of just your introduction was, we're here. There's a lot of folks that care deeply about the organization sitting in the Zoom room right now. And there's a lot of folks that are going to watch this recording. They're having their chapter meetings right now that care deeply about the mission this organization delivers and ensuring that we're able to deliver even more in the future. And so let's talk about this. I wore my Call of the Uplands hat here. You've already mentioned it. It's in the title. Call of the Uplands is something, we've been hearing a lot about now, right? So let's peel back the curtain a little bit. Over the last 10 months, chapter leaders in the Zoom room tonight or watching this recording, as I mentioned, have been hearing a lot of it. Last spring, Howard had a public presentation on the website. We shared the Call of the Uplands video. We've had countless articles in the journal, press releases. The regional reps certainly talked about it at district meetings, at least we did here in Minnesota. So I'm curious, why is it? Why is there so much steam behind this now? What's going on with Call of the Uplands?
Great question, Will. At the end of the day, Call of the Uplands is everything we are as an organization, and it's everything we want to be going into the future. When you think about where we've been historically and the humble beginnings of the organization in a garage in St. Paul, Minnesota, and quickly expanding across Minnesota and across Iowa, and all of the chapters that were started in the early days, and now having 750 volunteer-led chapters around the country that are, as you said, meeting tonight. This is the time of year where a lot of them are hosting their annual fundraising event, and thank God we're actually able to do it this year. And I actually have been to a couple of those here in the last month, and it's just great to be back in a room with a lot of people that care about the mission. We've had a lot of success organizationally, thanks to the support of our members, our donors, our volunteers, and our partners. We've impacted over 20 million acres of wildlife habitat, all in through all sources since 1982. We've had over 1 million participants in our education and outreach programs. And we've had a lot of success from a legislative advocacy standpoint, not only as it relates to the conservation title of the Farm Bill and the strategic changes and improvements we've been able to make to increase the wildlife benefit outcomes associated with things like the CRP program. But the reality is, even though we've had all of these tremendous successes as an organization, the landscape has still continued to change a lot since 1982. It would look drastically different without Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever in our mission and what we've been able to accomplish. But the challenges are great. In just the last 10 years alone, we've lost 53 million acres of grasslands in the Great Plains region. That's an area the size of Kansas that's been converted to another use. We've had long-term declines in upland bird populations. We've all seen it. We continue to see it as we take to the field each fall. An 83% decline in northern bobwhite quail range-wide. Some key pheasant states that historically were awesome places to get out and chase pheasants around in the fall have seen 75% declines in the pheasant population. All of that is attributable to changes in habitat. And as the habitat organization, it's important that we continue to get more creative in how we're inspiring folks to engage and support our mission, because if we don't, the challenges are just going to continue to get greater. Call of the Uplands is our opportunity to take everything we do as an organization and strategically package it to try and rally everyone that cares about the uplands around the organization and our mission. So if you care about water quality, if you care about game bird populations, if you care about butterflies, if you care about continuing to provide opportunities for young people to get out into the outdoors and learn about natural resource conservation, if you care about public access, if you care about farmers, all of those things go into Call of the Uplands. And so when we decided a few years ago that we wanted to do something about the tremendous challenges that we were facing and create a new trajectory for the organization, the first thing that came to mind was, well, let's look at doing a campaign. So we went through a strategic planning process as an organization. That strategic planning process was something that was developed by leaders across the country, our national board of directors. Lots of volunteers were engaged in that, and we came up with 400 different strategic initiatives that we either want to expand or launch as part of Call of the Uplands. So we've got things in Call of the Uplands that are doing sage grouse habitat up in the northwest part of the country. Down in the pine forests of Florida and Georgia, we're working on bobwhite quail habitat. Down in the southwest, desert quail habitat improvement. And then, as you can imagine, across the Great Plains region, the upper Midwest, and up into states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, we have priority strategic initiatives in all those states. So when you think about Call of the Uplands, it's not this nebulous national effort where you're trying to determine, where the funds that are being raised are going to be going or what the outcomes are going to be. It's the stuff that we're doing in people's backyard. And we're trying to rally everybody around that and pursue resources to expand our mission delivery. From a mission delivery standpoint, the working mission delivery goals for the campaign are to impact 9 million acres of wildlife habitat in the next 5 years. And that includes 75,000 acres that would be permanently protected, either via fee title acquisition using things like our Build a Wildlife Area program or via conservation easements in some strategic locations. And it also includes about $125,000, or excuse me, 125,000 acres of public access that we're trying to expand around the country. In addition to that, we realize that we can have all the great habitat in the world, but if we don't have the next generation coming up behind all of us, we've really not done a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. So the education and outreach pillar of the campaign is striving to impact 1.5 million participants in our education and outreach program. Again, that would be through all sources. We're counting the chapter education and outreach events as a component of that. So the chapters that are on the call here this evening, those of you that are doing youth mentored hunts or helping host landowner workshops, you're already a part of this campaign. If you're supporting our strategic habitat initiatives or doing habitat work in your area, you're already a part of this campaign. And then the third pillar, so we've got habitat conservation, education, and outreach. The third pillar of the campaign is advocacy. And again, we all know how important our advocacy efforts are, whether that's related to what we do in Washington, D.C., or what we do in different state houses around the country, advocating for sustainable funding mechanisms like we have in the state of Minnesota that's been so wildly successful for our mission. So those are the three campaign pillars. All of that, what we're trying to raise is $500 million. Yeah, you got your eyes got big there, Will. $500 million for upland habitat conservation is what we're trying to raise. That includes everything the organization does. And so when we started the campaign in early 2017, the way that we do this is we roll in what our baseline budget was at that point, organization-wide, everything we do, plus $110 million in new money. So when we get done with the campaign, that will be our new baseline going forward. And our next endeavor will be designed to be a plus up on top of that. Where we are right now, we have already started to see the benefits of the campaign from a mission delivery standpoint, and we've already raised $375 million towards our $500 million campaign goal. The timeline for the campaign is for this to hopefully wrap up from a fundraising standpoint in February of 2023 at Pheasant Fest. Obviously, the mission delivery outcomes associated with all the funds we raise will continue after that and long into the future. And if you're wondering why we haven't heard much about the campaign since last February when the video came out, well, from a strategic planning standpoint and from a campaign delivery standpoint, when you're doing a campaign, you go through a number of different phases. The first phase that you go through is just the feasibility phase. Is what we're wanting to do as an organization feasible? And you work with a campaign consultant. They take a look at the organization, whether it's Pheasants Forever or Susan G. Komen, whatever the cause, and they say, okay, based on where you are organizationally, this could be an advantageous time for a campaign, or you probably shouldn't do one right now. Maybe wait a couple of years. Well, we went through that process and made the determination in 2016, thanks to the support of some volunteers from around the country that were on our campaign planning committee, a number of whom were from the chapter network, that we were going to press forward. So in 2016, our National Board of Directors approved it. We went through a year-long process of putting all the nuts and bolts of the campaign together, and then started it officially on July 1st, 2017, at which time we were in the process of securing leadership gifts. So large gifts from individuals, large gifts from corporations, large gifts from foundations to set the table for when we would take this public. It was our intent to go public with this campaign in 2020 and to roll it out to the chapters, but based on some craziness that happened in 2020, we made the strategic decision, let's hang back for a little bit, wait to see what the next year holds. We actually added an extra year onto the campaign just to be safe. And now we're at the point where we're looking for broad engagement in this campaign. So we've been through the planning phase, the quiet phase, and now we're into the public phase where we get to sing from the rooftops what Call the Uplands is and engage support from all of our members, everyone that cares about the Uplands, and have all of our chapters engaged and activated in this campaign and striving to accomplish the goals of the campaign.
Whoa, that was a lot. I thought my question was long-winded, but that was perfect, man. I get it. And so I'm just a lowly, I'm just a regional rep. I'm here on Zoom. I'm trying to learn. So this is my first obvious comprehensive campaign. I have a biology background, but I just want to sort of lay it out sort of like I'm 5 years old. Right. That's how I love for explanation. I want to rewind a little bit and kind of take it more local. So if I belong to a church in my local community and that church is looking to expand, to grow, right? They're gonna enter into some sort of fundraiser, some sort of capital campaign to make that congregation grow, make that building grow. And in reality, from what I'm hearing is Pheasants Forever is doing that at scale. Right, we're trying to grow, to reach new areas, like you mentioned, sage grouse, Florida, like areas I don't think they thought possible when this organization was started just north of my place here in Minneapolis. But that's where we're at. That's the core of this. We've got the three pillars. I've got them right in front of me: habitat conservation, education, outreach, and advocacy. Well, those are the things that our chapter leaders have been delivering for years. And now we're just looking to, level up as an organization. Is that the 5-year-old way to do this? Did I catch most of that?
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it, Will. You know, we had a great foundation to the organization. We've got strong chapter networks around the country. We have strong partnerships, but there are a lot of other people, whether that's individuals, corporations, foundations, that we feel could be inspired to do more. Historically, we haven't placed a whole lot of emphasis organizationally on major gift fundraising and having people view it as a philanthropic cause. We've been really, really good at event style fundraising because our chapters have been so awesome at it. And now this is okay, let's try and take all of that energy and momentum that we have and the brands that we've built and the outcomes that we've been able to generate, and let's take it to the next level. So this is kind of the plus up. So the next part of the organization's journey towards making sure that Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever are able to perpetuate those species long into the future.
Awesome. So you sort of mentioned it, right? You mentioned the word foundation when you sort of approved my rudimentary version of a campaign, and we're on a chapter happy hour. We've talked, we mentioned it already. The starting of this organization and our event-based fundraising. Well, our chapters are the foundation of this organization, right? They've been carrying the torch and raising the money for 37 years. And we've got this campaign. There's a lot of momentum behind it, as I shared in my initial question. But let's break it down for the folks on the call. I mean, these are people that, one, care deeply about the organization, as I mentioned, and they give of their time to volunteer for it. So, you've mentioned a lot about, cultivating donors and finding new people to invest in this organization. But what about the folks that have been giving their time, treasure, and effort to this organization for, since the 80s, for crying out loud? Where do chapters play a role in Call the Uplands?
Great question. And first, I want to make sure that all the people that are participating know how much I appreciate what you all do. I've been a volunteer for this organization. I volunteer for a lot of other causes that are important to me. And there's nothing more valuable than your time. And so I want to thank all of you for what you do for our mission and all the time and energy and passion that you put into it. And then what the outcomes of that have been. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about a $500 million comprehensive campaign if all of these people wouldn't have been dedicating their time since 1982. It's just not possible. As it relates to what chapters can do to activate in the campaign, I think that the campaign does a number of things. One is it puts the chapter in a position to leverage all of the campaign messaging that's going on, all the information that's been coming out via the campaign video, all the information that people are seeing in the publication about Call the Uplands and our strategic vision for the future, all of the emails, and then all the stuff we're going to be continuing to do as we move through the public phase. So if your chapter isn't engaged in trying to leverage that momentum, now is a great time to get started. Be thinking about how you can use the Call of the Uplands messaging to inspire additional support from the people that are participating in your banquet, people that are participating in the youth mentor hunt that you're involved with, and make sure that they know that you and your chapter, all of our volunteers, all of our members, all of our supporters, all of our partners are part of Call of the Uplands. This isn't a national campaign. This is your campaign. We're just packaging this in a way that pulls all the information together in one place and hopefully rallies people across the country around Call of the Uplands. I think we're already having quite a bit of success with that based on the response that we've had up to this point. I know that a lot of chapters are starting to show the Call of the Uplands campaign video at their different events. So if your chapter hasn't done that or hasn't been thinking about doing it, take advantage of that. We have two different campaign videos. There's a long version that's posted on the website that's about 11 minutes long, and there's a short version that's only about 5 minutes. And knowing how hard it is to keep folks' attention at a banquet, I would say probably the 5-minute version is the way to go. In addition to that, there are opportunities for you to promote the Call of the Uplands at your banquet through the banquet program covers. There's information on it in there. There are placemats and Call of the Uplands brochures online for your chapter to purchase. And those are great ways to spread the message, not only on the campaign, but how your chapter is a part of achieving the campaign goals. Second, another way to participate in Call of the Uplands is to expand your chapter's financial support of Call of the Uplands priority initiatives. I know all of you are familiar with things like the Legislative Action Fund, vitally important to the organization's mission and to the advocacy pillar of the campaign. So if you haven't made your Legislative Action Fund commitment for this year, think about what additional you can do on top of what you have done historically for a Legislative Action Fund contribution. Think about how your chapter can expand your support of our education and outreach programs, either financially by supporting the strategic priority areas that are associated with the education and outreach pillar, or trying to figure out how you can expand your education and outreach impact by hosting an additional education and outreach event in the year ahead. Supporting things like our Build a Wildlife Area program and state priority initiatives are also vitally important. So those are some additional ways. Think about either from a financial support standpoint or from an expanding a delivery standpoint of what it is that your chapter does. If there's something additional you can do as part of the Call of the Uplands campaign. The third area would be helping us expand philanthropic support of the organization. I touched on it briefly, but historically, we haven't placed a whole lot of emphasis on that. It's really been about in the last decade where we've been doing things like promoting planned giving, remembering Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever as part of your will or estate plan, working with individuals and corporations to have them pledge their financial support of the organization. You probably have seen some information on what Nestle Purina has been doing in recent years. We've had a wonderful relationship with Nestle Purina for a long time. They've been extremely generous, but they were inspired by what the Call of the Uplands was striving to accomplish and made $1 million gift to support our efforts in the Prairie Pothole region through the Soil Health and Habitat Program. So there's an opportunity for us to get people engaged from a philanthropic standpoint. And think about it like this. People have a number of pots of money that they contribute annually to the causes they care about. They have disposable income, and disposable income is typically what an individual or family will spend when they sponsor a chapter event or what they spend when they go to a chapter fundraising event. It's the money they kind of have allocated that's available for them to spend. They see a really cool print. They want to participate in the raffles. They want to sponsor a table. That's the disposable income. And then there's savings and other somewhat liquid assets, things like stocks. And, we're blessed. The stock market has been going gangbusters the last year and a half, and we have a lot of people who've been making gifts of stock. And that's typically where a major gift would come from, or a campaign pledge. Someone sits down and they think, I really want to help this organization, whether it's Pheasants Forever or their church, maybe their church is building a new wing on to the chapel, something like that. And they say, I want to help with this. So they take a look at those other resources, their savings, their stock portfolio, and they make a decision. I want to make a campaign pledge on top of what I already do, supporting with my disposable income. Third bucket is the bucket of life accumulated assets. So that would be what someone does when they make a planned gift to an organization as part of their will or their estate plan. The campaign consultant that we worked with shared that they have never seen an organization that is more well positioned to capture planned gifts than Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever is. We have tremendous volunteers, we have tremendous affinity for the cause, and a lot of people that have the ability to make a planned gift. And that's the only gift someone can make that doesn't impact them financially during their lifetime. So our goal as an organization is to capture as much of all of those pots of money as we can for the benefit of our mission. And we need the chapter's helps with that. There are people in your communities that have been supporting your local chapter for years and years, some maybe since 1982. You know who these people are, and you think to yourself probably on more than one occasion, I know that person could do a lot more. Why is it that they haven't increased their support? Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they currently don't view Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever as a philanthropic cause. But we want to help you do that. So the regional rep team, as well as the development major gift fundraising team. So myself, we have a number of other development officers scattered around the country. We want to learn who these people are, and we want to collaborate with the chapters to develop a cultivation strategy that's donor-centric in approach, which means we're maximizing that individual's support of our organization to their delight. So they sit down, they think, I really like what this Call the Uplands campaign is about. I see the impact that it's going to be having in my local community, and I want to pledge my support at a higher level and say, maybe they want to make a $10,000 to $15,000 annual gift for the next 5 years. So we need your help with that. If there are people in your communities that you feel could be inspired to do more, we want to visit with you about those folks and help you secure those resources from that person that might otherwise be going somewhere else to benefit the mission that we care so deeply about here at Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. There's lots of different tools and resources we have available now as an organization. So if there are those folks that you're thinking, gosh, I'd really like to learn more about that individual and maybe what they're giving to other similar causes like Ducks Unlimited or National Wild Turkey Federation, and contemplate how we can go and meet with those folks and tell them not only what the local chapter is doing, but how the chapter's connection to Call of the Uplands is making a difference. There's tons of opportunity out there, and we've really not even touched the tip of the iceberg on it as an organization. In addition to that, we'd like you to think about how you might be able to support this campaign at a higher level financially. I mentioned it earlier about your chapter contemplating how the chapter could increase its support of our priority initiatives. We'd also like for our chapter volunteers to think about how they can personally do that. Do you have an opportunity to expand your support of your local chapter? Have you thought about becoming a life member or a patron member? If so, now is a great time to do that. Is there a specific pillar, habitat conservation, education and outreach, or advocacy that motivates you those are also areas where you can pledge your financial support as an individual. And there's, as I mentioned, 400 different strategic initiatives that you can direct your financial support to, and that our donors from around the country have been directing their support towards the things they care about. And lastly, if you haven't considered making a planned gift to the organization as part of your will or your estate plan, we'd like you to contemplate if that's something you'd be willing to do as part of this campaign and help us not only achieve our campaign goals, but those are the gifts that are going to sustain the organization going long into the future. So those are a few different ways we'd love for the chapters to activate. There's lots of other things beyond that, but those are three kind of areas that are top of mind for me, Will.
Another killer answer, full of information. I will, I was just thinking, especially when you started, we're talking about growing and building. And one of the first things you talked about was, chapters, increasing financial support of our priority initiatives, but through the channels in which they're already giving, LAF, state programs, NCLI, or education outreach programs. To me, not only are we trying to grow the organization through Call the Uplands, but this is an excellent time to grow your chapter, right? You touched on it, like just reaching out to more folks, bringing more people into your chapter, and using that momentum, the momentum of Call the Uplands, to build your chapter. And simply building the chapter, building the outreach, and the folks that are coming and playing a role either within your chapter, or coming to your events, or just coming to your habitat days. Everything that you're doing will allow you to make a greater contribution either to the programs tied to these strategic priorities, or like you said, deliver more mission at your local level. There's no better time than now to focus on growth and positivity, and especially growth in this situation. The organization is leveling up. I mean, we set a $500 million goal, and what'd you say earlier? We're here, $375 million has been raised. I mean, these are crazy. This is crazy talk. It's really, really exciting stuff. And you nailed it. Look, for the chapter leaders that are listening, Jordan went through a bunch of promotional materials and how you can get involved. Reach out to your regional representative. If you've got any questions, if there's something you missed while we were having a quick conversation, or, you're driving down the road, or you're hunting your favorite spot in Northeast Kansas where there's some quail, and you're like, what more can I do? Your regional representative that serves you can certainly connect you with the development team, or can help you get these resources. If those videos are something you want to play at your banquet, Jordan's right. Likely the 5-minute one, they're just beautifully done. If you haven't seen them, we'll get you those videos. Make sure you have the link. We'll make sure you have the information to share Call the Uplands with, your banquet attendees. And again, it's not an easy thing to identify those that are giving more and have for years, but it's important. It's important to know that we've got champions in the crowd at the events. We've got champions within these chapter committees and networks. And it's those folks, like the folks attending tonight's call, that are gonna, just help us crush this $500 million goal and set Pheasants Forever up to continue to deliver missions, the things we've been doing since 1982 on into the future for the next generation. It's an exciting time. And hopefully we get a few more of these cool hats printed up, because I think this is how we're going to get the next 100 million. I'm just saying, a lot of people like this hat. So now's a good time if you've got a question. Jordan, right? I mean, you covered a lot. So if you've got a question, feel free to dump it in the Q&A section. There's some struggles with CRP in the Q&A section here. I don't know that Call the Uplands is, focused on the intricacies of a federal farm bill program. However, you touched on it. It is we are still funding our advocacy efforts in Washington D.C. So Vince, I don't know, Jordan, I don't really know that what he's talking about in this Q&A can be touched on with our call of the Uplands. So
yeah, Vince, thanks for the question, and thanks for participating. To Will's point, some of the intricacies of what's going on with the CRP program, those would be better questions for your regional representative, the local, let's see, you're in Illinois, so we have a state coordinator in Illinois, and then also our legislative affairs team. We certainly want to be aware of those, so our legislative affairs team can advocate for improvements. But in the broader sense, the CRP program in and of itself is part of Call of the Uplands in a lot of ways. We're continuing to fight for conservation policy in Washington, D.C. and in state capitals, and we can't do it without financial support from our chapters and from individuals. There's an old saying, conservation without money is just conversation. And that's really the case when it comes to advocacy. If we don't have those resources to fund our team and to get the message out, like Vince's question, to our legislators in DC, and then also on the delivery side of it. So not only are we involved in, helping write the policy and advocating for policy, like the National Grasslands Conservation Act that we're currently working on with about 10 other conservation partners, the goal of which for that is to secure perpetual funding of $350 million annually for grassland conservation, modeled after the North American Wetlands Conservation Act. So things like that have lasting impact are part of our advocacy pillar. And then after we get the policy passed, we know that a lot of times that's when the real work begins. And so our team of legislative affairs folks is also involved in developing how those policies are going to be implemented in partnership with USDA. So I appreciate you sharing that, Vince. We'll be sure to pass that along to our legislative affairs team and have someone follow up with you.
I appreciate that. I just shared our email addresses. John reached out. So again, if you're volunteering for this organization, you're part of a much larger team. And as Jordan shared, just with the CRP question that came in through here, we have the folks in the arena that can either answer most of the questions you've got or to make a difference. And Jordan just shared that. So if there's no other questions, it's about 45 minutes. We've been talking about Call of the Uplands, which is an exciting time. I got one. Okay. You see that one there, Jordan?
I do. Yeah, from Scott, just getting over the COVID issue and not having banquet for a while. I feel it might be too soon for our chapter to present this at our 2022 banquet. I'm all for it, but an additional year for some chapters might be in order. I certainly understand and respect that, Scott. And I see where you're coming from on that. It's just been a crazy year. But what I would say is I think that based on what I've seen so far as chapters kind of get rolling again and are getting people back in the doors, there's a hunger right now. People are pretty amped up. A lot of people weren't able to travel for upland bird season last year. As we're all aware, a lot of chapter fundraisers didn't occur. And so people are excited to be back out and about. So if if you think you can, even though you might be a little hesitant to do it, I would say try and take advantage of the momentum that Call of the Uplands is presented. Because even if someone hasn't been to a banquet in a year, they have been getting the publication, they have been seeing things like the video launch. Maybe they already visited the website, so they're probably aware of Call of the Uplands at this point. And for them to come into your banquet hall and see some Call of the Uplands information, just try and leverage that if you can, is what I would say. Try and take advantage of the momentum that's been generated by Call of the Uplands up to this point, and use it for the benefit of your chapter, and try and rally people that night. The video is great. I've seen it a ton of times, and the 5-minute one, it's inspiring. So I would say that's a great way to just promote the Call of the Uplands, and what we're doing is to show the video if you can.
They're coming in now. I got a fake. I was going to wrap it up, and I started down that path, but we've got a couple more. Call of the Wild is an excellent movie, but it's Call of the Uplands. Austin is what we're after. I appreciate that. Jordan, you want to talk a little bit about that? We've got two sort of similar questions. So corporate partnerships. You mentioned Nestle Purina already, but they're certainly a part of the umbrella of Call of the Uplands. Would you agree?
Yes. So the question is, how will corporate partnerships affect the direction of Call of the Uplands? Are these partnerships leading to long-term funding? Where does the longevity of this initiative go? So this really, we view this as the start. So over time, as I mentioned, and as you all know, we've had a lot of success with our local chapter fundraising, partnership building, but we've never really taken a philanthropic approach. So this allows us to take all of our priority initiatives or specific things that we know will resonate with a corporate partner and pursue larger financial commitments. So over time, the opportunity is presented for us to continue to grow that. So when we get $1 million gift from a Nestle Purina in support of the Soil Habitat and Health Program, we're not thinking, that's great, they gave us this gift and we're done. We're thinking, okay, now we've got something really cool going here. How do we leverage that? How do we take this gift and leverage it from $1 million into $2 or $3 million? And then next step is deliver that gift to the landscape and get Nestle Purina bought in at a higher level. So when we go to them with the next proposal, maybe it's $3 million. So over time, our goal is to continue to grow the corporate philanthropic support as well as the philanthropic support of individuals. A lot of times you don't get your largest gift until the 7th gift you've received from an individual or an entity. So there's a lot of room for us to grow in that regard.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up right there. Whether you knew it or not, you said the word grow so many times tonight, and it's just that's what we're talking about, right? I mean, we spent 50 minutes talking about Call of the Uplands, but we're growing, and it's an exciting time to be a part of Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. And we've got some great chapter volunteers that have joined us tonight and that will watch this recording as well. So Jordan, thank you for joining us. Everybody else, have a great evening. Join me December 7th. Matt Holland and Chris McClellan are going to talk about the Build a Wildlife Area program, which Jordan mentioned. So
you don't want to miss that one.
Don't want to miss that one. That'll be an entertaining bunch. So we'll see you December 6th. Other than that, if you're in the deer stands, good luck. If you're hitting the upland fields, Jordan, good luck with those quail, everybody. Take care.
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Long live the uplands.